The massive Zephyrian ship came out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Its hull gleamed silver against the black of space, stretching 3 kilometers from bow to stern. Ambassador Kethvar stood on the bridge, his tall blue form draped in ceremonial robes. His forearms held various communication devices while his large black eyes studied the data streaming across holographic displays. "Another primitive world to welcome into the Empire," he said to his aide. "How many does this make?"
10,000?
10,012, Ambassador, the aide replied. "This species calls themselves humans. They appear to have basic space travel and some colonies in their system." Kethvar nodded. It was always the same. The Galactic Empire found a new species, offered them protection and technology, and added another world to their collection. Most species jumped at the chance. Those who refused learned the hard way that the Empire always got what it wanted. The journey to the third planet took 2 days. As they flew through the system, Kethvar studied the intelligence reports. Humans had settlements on their moon, on the red planet they called Mars, and in the asteroid belt. Their technology seemed decent, but nothing special. Their ships were smaller than Zephyrian vessels, but appeared well built. What surprised him was the message they received as they approached the blue-green world called Earth. "Zephyrian vessel, this is Earth Defense Command. We welcome you to our system. Please maintain your current course to the coordinates we're sending. A diplomatic escort will meet you there." Kethvar's aide looked confused. "They're giving us orders?" "Probably just their customs," Kethvar said, though something felt different about these humans. Most new species were either terrified or eager to please when the Empire arrived. These humans sounded calm and confident. The human ships that met them were sleek and silver, smaller than the Zephyrian vessel but moving with precision. They formed an escort pattern around the ambassador's ship and guided them to a space station orbiting Earth. The station was impressive, spinning slowly to create artificial gravity. It bristled with communication arrays and docking ports. As the Zephyrian ship attached to the station, Kethvar could see other human vessels nearby. They looked ready for anything. The docking bay doors opened and Kethvar stepped onto human-built ground for the first time. The station's interior was clean and efficient with wide corridors and soft lighting. Humans in uniform waited to greet them. The lead human stepped forward. She was shorter than Kethvar, with dark skin and graying hair pulled back in a neat style. She wore a simple blue uniform with silver markings. "Ambassador Kethvar," she said, speaking perfect galactic standard. "I'm Ambassador Chen, representing Earth and all human colonies. Welcome to our system." Kethvar was impressed. Most species took years to learn proper galactic standard. These humans had mastered it before first contact. "Thank you for the welcome," Kethvar replied. "I bring greetings from the Zephyrian Empire and an invitation to join our great family of worlds." Ambassador Chen smiled, but something in her eyes seemed sad. "We appreciate the offer. Please, let's talk in the conference room." The room overlooked Earth through a massive window. The planet turned slowly below them, showing blue oceans and white clouds. It looked peaceful and beautiful. Kethvar had seen many worlds, but few were as lovely as this one. "Your world is quite beautiful," he said as they sat at a curved table. "Thank you," Chen replied. "We're very protective of it." Kethvar activated his holographic display, showing images of Empire worlds and the benefits of membership. "The Galactic Empire offers protection, advanced technology, and trade with 10,000 worlds. Your species would have access to medical advances, faster ships, and knowledge beyond your current understanding." Chen listened politely as he explained the standard deal. "Join the Empire as a member world, accept Zephyrian oversight, and enjoy the benefits of galactic civilization." When he finished, Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she leaned forward, her expression serious. "Ambassador Kethvar, we're honored by your offer. We hope for peaceful relations between our peoples, but I need to be very clear about something." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Earth is off limits. We welcome trade and friendship, but no foreign ships can approach our homeworld." Kethvar's forearm stopped moving. In all his years as a diplomat, no species had ever made demands of the Empire. "I'm not sure I understand," he said slowly. "We're asking you to stay away from Earth," Chen repeated. "Our colonies, our space stations, our settlements throughout the system, we can discuss all of that. But Earth itself must remain untouched." The Zephyrian aide whispered something in their native language. Kethvar waved him quiet. Ambassador Chen, perhaps you don't understand how the Empire works. We don't accept conditions or limitations. When a species joins us, they gain our protection. In return, we have access to their worlds and resources. Chen's expression didn't change. Then we must politely decline your offer. You're refusing to join the Empire? Kethvar couldn't hide his shock. We're refusing to allow anyone near Earth, Chen said firmly. Stay away from our world, Ambassador. This isn't a threat or a challenge. It's a warning given in friendship. Kethvar stood up, his ceremonial robes rustling. No species in the galaxy refuses the Empire's offer. Your world has resources we need. Your people could benefit greatly from our technology. We understand the benefits, Chen said, also standing. But the answer is still no. Earth is forbidden. Forbidden by whom? Kethvar demanded. You're a single species on one world. The Empire has armies and fleets beyond your imagination. For the first time, Chen's calm broke slightly. She looked out the window at Earth, and Kethvar saw something he didn't expect. Fear. Please, she said quietly. For your own sake and ours, stay away from Earth. You wouldn't understand the reasons, but trust us. The warning we're giving you isn't about protecting ourselves. It's about protecting you. Kethvar stared at her. Protecting us? From what? Chen turned back to him. Her calm restored, but her eyes still carrying that strange fear. From something you're not ready to face. Something the galaxy isn't ready to face. The meeting continued for another hour, but neither side would bend. Kethvar offered technology and threatened consequences. Chen remained polite but firm. Earth was off limits, period. As the Zephyrian ship prepared to leave the system, Kethvar sent a message to the Empire's military command. The humans had refused to join peacefully and had made impossible demands. Worse, they had shown no proper respect for Imperial authority. But as his ship jumped to hyperspace, Kethvar found himself thinking about Ambassador Chen's expression when she looked at Earth. He had seen fear in many species' eyes when they met the Empire. But this was different. Chen hadn't been afraid of the Zephyrians. She had been afraid of something on her own world. The thought bothered him during the long journey back to Imperial space. What could make an entire species so desperate to keep others away from their homeworld? What were the humans hiding down there? And why had Chen seemed so sad when she warned them to stay away? High Admiral Zextoth read the report 3 times before throwing it across his office. The electronic pad clattered against the metal wall and fell to the floor. Refused? He roared. They refused the Empire's generous offer? Captain Veltar, his aide, picked up the pad carefully. Yes, sir. Ambassador Kethvar tried for several hours, but the humans would not change their position. Zextoth was a large Zephyrian, even by his species standards. His dark blue skin was marked with the scars of a dozen battles, and his forearms were thick with muscle. He had spent 50 years bringing new worlds into the Empire, first with diplomacy, then with force when needed. And they had the nerve to give us orders about their planet? He continued, pacing behind his desk. They called it a warning, sir, Veltar said carefully. A warning? Zextoth slammed his primary fist on the desk. No species warns the Zephyrian Empire. We are the ones who give warnings. The High Admiral moved to the large window that looked out over the Imperial fleet yards. Hundreds of warships floated in organized formations, their weapons gleaming under the system's twin suns. This was power. This was what brought order to the galaxy. What do we know about their military? He asked. Veltar consulted his pad. Limited information, sir. They have several dozen ships in their system, mostly smaller vessels. Some defensive platforms around their colonies. Nothing that should trouble a proper Imperial battle group. Should, Zextoth repeated. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. Send scout ships to their system. I want detailed reports on their defenses, their technology, and their capabilities. Yes, sir. How close should they approach? Zextoth smiled coldly. Close enough to get good scans. If these humans want to play games, they need to understand who they're dealing with. The first scout ship, Whisper of Stars, entered the human system a week later. Commander Kexra had led dozens of reconnaissance missions and prided himself on getting information without being detected. The mission started normally. They emerged from hyperspace at the system's edge and began moving inward on silent running. Their advanced sensors picked up human patrol ships near the outer planets but nothing that could detect a Zephyrian scout vessel. Kexra studied the tactical displays as they approached the asteroid belt. Human mining operations were visible throughout the region, impressive for such a young species. Their ships moved efficiently between the asteroids, hauling raw materials back toward the inner system. Getting good scans of their industrial capabilities, reported his sensor officer. Nothing extraordinary, but they're certainly organized. As they moved past Mars, Kexra could see the human colonies on the red planet's surface. Domed cities connected by transport tubes, orbital platforms. It was all very standard for a spacefaring civilization. "Sir," the sensor officer said, his voice puzzled. "I'm picking up some strange readings from the third planet." Kexra looked at the display. Earth hung in space ahead of them, blue and white and beautiful, but the sensor readings were odd. "What kind of strange?" "I'm not sure, sir. The electromagnetic patterns are unusual, and there's something else." The officer frowned at his instruments. "Sir, I'm getting massive energy readings from below the planet's surface, much stronger than anything their technology should produce." Before Kexra could respond, every alarm on the bridge started screaming. The ship shuddered as if something had grabbed it. "What's happening?" Kexra shouted over the noise. "Unknown, sir. All systems are showing errors. Navigation is failing. The engines won't respond properly." The ship continued to shake. Through the viewports, the stars seemed to spin crazily. Several crew members grabbed their heads, crying out in pain. "Get us out of here," Kexra ordered. It took 20 minutes to restore enough control to retreat from the system. As soon as they jumped to hyperspace, the problem stopped. The crew recovered quickly, but they all looked shaken. "What was that?" asked the sensor officer. Kexra had no answer. In 40 years of military service, he had never experienced anything like it. The second scout mission fared worse. The ship, Silent Hunter, approached Earth from a different angle, hoping to avoid whatever had affected Whisper of Stars. Commander Texiva was the Empire's best stealth specialist. They made it closer to Earth before the problem started. This time it wasn't just equipment failures. The crew began reporting nightmares even while awake. Hallucinations appeared on the viewports, shadows moving where nothing should be. The ship's computer started producing data that made no sense. "Sir," the communications officer reported, her voice shaking. "I'm picking up transmissions from Earth, but they're not in any human language. It's something else, something wrong." Texiva listened to the recordings later. The sounds were unlike anything in the Imperial databases. They seemed to come from something vast and angry, something that had been disturbed. The mission ended when 3 crew members collapsed, screaming about voices in their heads. Silent Hunter fled the system even faster than the first scout ship. High Admiral Zextoth read both reports with growing anger. "Equipment failures and crew panic," he growled. "Are we sending children on these missions?" Captain Veltar looked uncomfortable. "Sir, both commanders are experienced officers, and the technical reports show real system malfunctions, not just crew nerves. Then the humans have some kind of defensive technology we don't understand," Zextoth decided. "All the more reason to find out what they're hiding." He ordered 3 more scout missions over the following month. Each time the results were the same. Ships approaching Earth experienced massive system failures. Crews reported feeling an overwhelming urge to flee. Some described nightmares so vivid they seemed real. One ship, Depth of Night, lost its entire sensor array when it tried to scan beneath Earth's oceans. The replacement crew refused to serve on the vessel, claiming it was cursed. "This is ridiculous," Zextoth announced after reading the 5th failed report. "Either these humans have technology far beyond what we've seen, or our crews are being affected by some kind of psychological warfare." "There is another possibility, sir," Veltar said carefully. "Which is?" "Maybe the humans were telling the truth. Maybe there really is something on their world that we should stay away from." Zextoth's 4 eyes fixed on his aide with cold fury. "Are you suggesting we take orders from a primitive species?" "No, sir. I'm just saying that 5 scout missions have all reported the same things. Maybe we should consider that their warning was genuine." The High Admiral turned back to his window, watching the fleet in its formations. The idea that humans could have something the mighty Zephyrian Empire couldn't handle was laughable. They were probably using some kind of fear-based technology, trying to keep the Empire away through trickery. "Prepare a battle group," he ordered. "Nothing too large. We don't want to appear weak by bringing overwhelming force against one primitive world, but enough to show these humans that their games won't work." "How many ships, sir?" 20 vessels. I'll command personally." Zextoth smiled coldly. "Let's see how brave these humans are when they face real Imperial power." Veltar made the arrangements, but he felt a growing sense of unease. The scout reports had been too consistent, too detailed to dismiss. Whatever was happening near Earth, it was real. As the battle group prepared to depart, he thought about the human ambassador's words from Kethvar's report. She had said the warning wasn't about protecting themselves. It was about protecting the Empire. For the first time in his career, Captain Veltar wondered if the Empire was making a terrible mistake. The Imperial battle group dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, like a pack of metal predators. 20 Zephyrian warships arranged themselves in attack formation, their hulls dark against the starfield. Each ship bristled with weapons designed to break planetary defenses and humble defiant species. High Admiral Zextoth stood on the bridge of his flagship, Hammer of Empire. His forearms were crossed as he studied the tactical displays showing human ship movements throughout the system. "They know we're here," reported Commander Yelsak, detecting multiple human vessels moving toward our position. "How many?" Zextoth asked. 12 ships, sir. Much smaller than our vessels, but they're moving fast." Zextoth smiled grimly. 12 ships against 20. The humans were either very brave or very stupid. "Open a communication channel." The main display showed a human female in a dark blue uniform. She had short gray hair and calm eyes that reminded Zextoth uncomfortably of Ambassador Chen from the first contact reports. "Zephyrian vessels," she said in clear galactic standard. "This is Admiral Sarah Martinez of Earth Defense Command. You are entering restricted space without permission. I am High Admiral Zextoth of the Galactic Empire," he replied coldly. "We are here to investigate reports of piracy in this system's asteroid belt." "Stand aside." Admiral Martinez's expression didn't change. "There has been no piracy reported in our system, Admiral. Your true purpose for being here is unclear but irrelevant. You must turn around and leave immediately." "Must?" Zextoth's voice rose. "You dare give orders to the Imperial fleet?" "I'm giving you the same warning we gave your ambassador," Martinez said quietly. "Stay away from Earth. This is not about politics or territory. This is about preventing something terrible from happening." The Zephyrian admiral leaned forward. "The only terrible thing that will happen is what occurs to species that defy the Empire. You have one chance to stand down and allow us passage." Martinez was quiet for a moment, and Zextoth thought he saw sadness in her eyes. "I can't do that, Admiral. I'm sorry, but Earth is off limits." "Then you force us to demonstrate Imperial power," Zextoth said. He cut the communication and turned to his tactical officer. "Take us into the system. Battle speed." The Imperial fleet began moving toward the inner system, their massive engines leaving trails of exotic particles. The human ships matched their course but maintained distance like small fish following sharks. As they passed the outer gas giant, more human vessels appeared. They emerged from behind moons and asteroid fields, joining the growing escort. Soon 30 human ships shadowed the Imperial fleet. "Sir," Commander Yelsak reported, "the humans aren't taking aggressive positions. They're just watching us." Zextoth studied the tactical display. The human ships stayed just outside weapons range, following parallel courses. It was strange behavior for a species facing invasion. His communication board chimed. "Admiral Martinez again." "Admiral Zextoth, please reconsider. You don't understand what you're approaching. Our warning isn't about our military capability. It's about something far more dangerous. The only danger here is to your ships if they interfere with Imperial business," Zextoth replied. "We're not going to attack you," Martinez said, and her voice carried an odd tone of desperation. "We're trying to protect you. Please turn back before it's too late." Zextoth cut the communication again. Protect them? The idea was absurd. What could a species that had barely reached the stars possibly protect the Galactic Empire from? The fleet continued inward, passing the asteroid belt where human mining operations went silent as they approached. The workers seemed to be evacuating their stations, fleeing deeper into the system. "Cowards," muttered Commander Yelsak. But Zextoth noticed something odd. The human ships weren't falling back to protect their industrial assets. They were still just following, maintaining the same careful distance. As they approached Mars, the human fleet had grown to 50 ships. They came from all directions, from the outer system, from the Martian colonies, even from the direction of Earth itself. But none of them took aggressive positions. Admiral Martinez tried to contact them again as they passed Mars orbit. "This is your last chance," she said, and now her voice was openly pleading. "Please, Admiral, listen to me. I've served in Earth's defense for 30 years. I've never begged an enemy for anything, but I'm begging you now. Turn back, enemy." Zextoth laughed. "You flatter yourself, Admiral. You're not our enemy. You're just an obstacle to be removed." Martinez closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they held a resignation that made Zextoth pause. "Then I'm sorry for what you're about to see," she said quietly. "Remember that we tried to warn you. As the Imperial fleet moved past Mars toward Earth, something unprecedented happened. The human ships began to fall back, not just maintaining distance, actually retreating. "Sir," Yelsak said, confusion clear in his voice, "the human fleet is withdrawing. They're pulling back toward the outer system." Zextoth watched the tactical display in amazement. The humans were running. After all their warnings and desperate communications, they were abandoning their homeworld. Finally showing some sense, he said. But something felt wrong about the retreat. It was too organized, too deliberate. This wasn't a rout of defeated forces. It was an evacuation. As they approached Earth's moon, the last human ships departed the area. Space around Earth was empty except for the Imperial fleet. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth's surface." The main display showed a different human this time, an elderly man with deep lines around his eyes and gray hair. He wore simple civilian clothes but carried himself with quiet authority. "Galactic Empire vessels," he said. "This is Director Collins of Earth Command. I'm speaking to you from our deepest bunker, kilometers below the surface. This is your final warning. What you are approaching is not just our world. It is a containment facility. Turn back now or you will wake something that should never be disturbed." Zextoth had heard enough warnings. "Director Collins, your people have evacuated and left you defenseless. Surrender now and we will show mercy." Collins shook his head slowly. "You still don't understand. We haven't left Earth defenseless. We've left you defenseless against Earth." The communication cut off and the Imperial fleet found itself alone in Earth's orbital space. The planet hung before them, blue and beautiful and seemingly helpless. "Begin scanning the surface," Zextoth ordered. "I want to know what these humans think they're hiding." As the ship's powerful sensors focused on Earth, Zextoth felt a moment of satisfaction. Another species had learned that defying the Empire was futile. Soon this lovely world would be another Imperial holding. But deep in his mind, a small voice whispered that something was very wrong. The humans had fled their own world rather than defend it. Admiral Martinez had looked genuinely terrified, not of the Imperial fleet, but of something else entirely, and Director Collins' final words echoed strangely. "We've left you defenseless against Earth." What did that mean? The answer came when the deep scanning began. The sensor readings that appeared on the tactical displays made no sense at first. Then slowly, terrifyingly, they began to make sense. And High Admiral Zextoth realized that the humans hadn't been threatening the Empire at all. They had been trying to save it. The deep scanning began at 800 ship time. High Admiral Zextoth watched the sensor displays with growing confusion as data streamed in from Earth's surface and interior. "Sir," the sensor officer said, his voice uncertain, "these readings can't be correct. What are you detecting?" Zextoth demanded. "Energy signatures from deep underground, sir." "But the scale is—" The officer paused, checking his instruments again. "Sir, the energy output from beneath Earth's crust is greater than our entire battle group produces." Zextoth moved to the sensor station. The displays showed Earth's surface in multiple spectrums, but it was the subsurface scans that captured his attention. Deep beneath the oceans and continents, something massive was generating enormous amounts of energy. Could it be a planetary defense system? Commander Yelsak suggested. "Unknown, sir," the sensor officer replied. "But if it is, it's unlike anything in our databases. The energy patterns are organic." "Organic?" Zextoth frowned. You mean biological? I think so, sir. But the size would be... The officer's voice trailed off as he stared at his readings. As the scans continued, other strange things began happening. Equipment throughout the fleet started experiencing minor malfunctions. Nothing serious at first, displays flickering, communications crackling with static, navigation systems showing momentary errors. Engineering reports are coming in from all ships, Yelsak said. Random system glitches across the fleet. Zextoth was about to respond when the communications officer called out urgently, "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Martinez. Sir, she's not in the system anymore. The signal is coming from outside Sol entirely." The main display showed Martinez again, but now she was clearly on a ship's bridge, not a station in the Sol system. "Admiral Zextoth," she said, and her voice carried a desperate urgency. "You need to stop your scanning immediately. The deep penetration sensors are disturbing it. You have to leave now before it fully wakes." "Before what wakes?" Zextoth snapped. Martinez looked directly at him through the display. "The reason humanity exists. The reason we can never leave Earth unguarded. We've been trying to tell you, Earth isn't our homeworld. It's our prison." The transmission cut to static before Zextoth could respond. He turned to his communications officer. "Where was that signal coming from?" "Outside the system, sir. At least 50 light-years away." Zextoth felt a chill. The human fleet hadn't just retreated to the outer system. They had fled Sol entirely. What could make an entire species abandon their homeworld? "Sir," the sensor officer called out, his voice higher than usual. "The energy readings from Earth are increasing. Something down there is responding to our scans." On the displays, the deep energy signatures were growing stronger. Seismic activity was beginning to spike across Earth's surface. The planet's magnetic field was fluctuating in ways that defied physics. "And, sir," the officer continued, "I'm detecting movement deep in the ocean trenches. Something very large is shifting." Before Zextoth could process this information, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. But these weren't equipment failure alarms. These were biological sensors detecting crew distress. "Medical emergency on Deck 7, came a report over the intercom. 3 crew members have collapsed. They're conscious but unresponsive. Same report from Deck 12, came another voice. 5 crew members are standing motionless, staring at the bulkheads. Zextoth grabbed the internal communication system. "All ships report status." The responses came in quickly, and they were all the same. Crew members throughout the fleet were experiencing psychological effects. Some stood frozen in place. Others reported hearing voices that weren't there. Several had collapsed and couldn't be roused. "It's affecting the crew psychically," Dr. Colthera reported from the medical bay. "Brain scans show unusual activity in regions we've never seen activated before. It's as if something is trying to communicate with them, but their minds can't handle the contact." Through the ship's viewports, Earth continued to turn slowly below them. It looked so peaceful, so beautiful, but the sensor readings told a different story. The energy outputs were now off the scale. "Massive seismic events were beginning to shake the planet, sir," the tactical officer reported. "We're detecting human ships throughout the galaxy. Thousands of them. They're all heading toward Sol at maximum speed." Zextoth stared at the long-range displays. Human vessels were converging on their home system from hundreds of light-years away. Military ships, civilian transports, even old cargo haulers, all racing back toward Earth. A new transmission came in, this time from the planet's surface. Director Collins appeared on screen again, but now he was clearly in some kind of underground facility. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on his face. "Imperial Fleet," he said, "you have to listen to me. Our deep sensors show massive movement beneath the Pacific Ocean. It's waking up because of your scans. You have minutes, maybe less, before it reaches the surface." "What is it?" Zextoth demanded. Collins looked directly into the camera. "The last of the old ones. A being so ancient and powerful that when our ancestors first found this world, they dedicated their entire civilization to keeping it asleep. We've been its guardians for 10,000 years. The ship shuddered, though they were in space with no atmosphere to carry vibrations. Somehow something was affecting the vessel itself. How is that possible?" Yelsak whispered. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, his voice barely controlled. "I'm reading massive displacement in Earth's oceans. Something is rising from the deepest trenches. Sir, it's larger than our entire fleet." On the displays, sonar readings from Earth's oceans showed something impossible. A form was emerging from depths that should have crushed any known life form. The shape was so large that the sensors couldn't map its full size. More crew members collapsed throughout the fleet. Medical teams reported that the affected personnel were experiencing shared nightmares even while awake. They spoke of vast spaces beneath the sea, of eyes larger than moons, of intelligence so alien that contact with it drove minds to breaking. "Sir," Dr. Colthera's voice came over the intercom. "Whatever's happening down there is getting stronger. The psychic pressure on the crew is increasing exponentially. If we don't leave soon, we'll lose everyone to mental collapse." Sextoth looked at the displays showing Earth. Cracks were appearing in the ocean floor. The planet's electromagnetic field was fluctuating wildly, and from somewhere far below the surface came readings that shouldn't exist, a consciousness so vast and ancient that the ship's computers couldn't process it properly. "Admiral," came Colin's voice again, "the humans returning to Sol aren't coming to attack you. They're coming to help us reinforce the containment. Every human in the galaxy knows their duty. When the Guardian stirs, we come home." Another communication came in, this time from Admiral Martinez. "Admiral Sextoth, you have to retreat immediately. We're 20 light years out and we can feel it stirring. Whatever you do, don't try to communicate with it directly. Don't let it know you're sapient. Just run." The ship shuddered again, more violently this time. Through the viewports, the stars themselves seemed to flicker. And from somewhere impossibly deep beneath Earth's surface came something that no technology should have been able to detect. A sound that traveled through space itself, bypassing physical laws. A sound of awakening, a sound of anger, a sound of hunger. High Admiral Sextoth finally understood why the humans had tried so desperately to warn them away. Earth wasn't a prize to be conquered. It was a cage that should never be opened. The moment High Admiral Sextoth ordered maximum scanning power, reality itself seemed to scream. Every display on the bridge of Hammer of Empire went white, then black, then showed images that couldn't exist. The sensor officer collapsed at his station, blood streaming from his nose, speaking in a language that predated galactic civilization. "Sir," Commander Yelsak shouted over alarms that sounded like dying animals. "Something is rising from Earth's core." The tactical display, when it finally stabilized, showed readings that broke every known law of physics. Beneath Earth's surface, something was unfolding. Not rising, unfolding as if the planet itself was just a shell containing something infinitely larger. The ship's computer, designed to process information from across the galaxy, began producing error messages in languages no one aboard recognized. Ancient symbols scrolled across displays, and somewhere in the ship's corridors, crew members began screaming. "Medical emergency on every deck." Came the report from sickbay. Half the crew is experiencing shared hallucinations. They're all seeing the same thing, something vast and tentacled rising from an ocean that doesn't exist. Through the bridge's main viewport, Earth still looked peaceful. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. But the sensors told a different story. They showed a world that was never what it seemed. A thin layer of normal matter wrapped around something that dwarfed solar systems. "Sir?" The communications officer called out, her voice shaking. "We're receiving a transmission from Earth's surface. It's not in any human language." The sound that came through the speakers was like whales singing. If whales were the size of planets and had been singing for millions of years, it was beautiful and terrible and completely alien. Several crew members dropped to their knees, weeping. Director Collins's voice cut through the alien song. "Imperial Fleet, stop your scanning immediately. You're waking the Guardian. It's been asleep for 10,000 years. Don't let it fully surface." But it was too late. The deep penetration scanners had done their work too well. They had reached down through Earth's crust, through the mantle, to touch something that had been deliberately hidden. "Sir," Yelsak said, his voice barely a whisper, "the scanner readings, they show it's not just beneath Earth, it is Earth. The whole planet is just its outer shell." Sextoth stared at the impossible data. Earth's continents were neural networks. The oceans were circulatory systems. The magnetic field was the electrical activity of a brain larger than any moon. Humanity hadn't evolved on Earth. They had been placed there. Guardians and prison wardens for something that could unmake reality itself. "How long?" Sextoth asked quietly. "Sir, how long have they been guarding this thing?" Yelsak checked the geological scans. Based on the human settlements and the containment structures,
Tens of thousands of years, sir.
Maybe longer. A new transmission came in. Admiral Martinez again, but now her ship was clearly racing back toward Sol at emergency speeds. Admiral Zextoth, listen to me carefully. What you've awakened is called the Dreaming Deep. It's been asleep since before the current galactic civilizations existed. When it dreams, reality changes around it. When it's fully awake, her voice broke. When it's fully awake, it consumes everything. Matter, energy, space-time, everything. The ship shuddered as something vast pressed against the fabric of space itself. Through the viewports, the stars began to bend inward, as if drawn toward Earth by gravity that shouldn't exist. Our ancestors found it by accident, Martinez continued. A deep space exploration mission detected a world that sang in frequencies that drove the crew insane. When they investigated, they discovered what Earth really was. They also discovered that their approach had begun to wake it. On the tactical displays, more human ships were arriving every minute. Not just military vessels, but civilian transports, mining ships, even ancient generation ships that had been traveling for centuries. All of humanity was coming home. They made a choice, Martinez said. They could try to flee to the far side of the galaxy and hope it would go back to sleep. Or they could stay and make sure it never fully woke up. They chose to stay. Director Collins's voice joined the transmission. Every human child is born knowing the truth. Earth is not our world. It's our responsibility. We live here not because it's home, but because someone has to watch the Guardian. Someone has to keep it dreaming instead of waking. The alien song was getting louder, and the ship's hull was beginning to vibrate in harmony with it. Several more crew members collapsed, but now they were singing along with the sound, their voices adding to the cosmic chorus. Sir, the sensor officer managed to gasp from where he lay on the deck. It's not just waking up. It's trying to communicate. It wants to know what disturbed its sleep. Zextoth realized with growing horror what that meant. The being beneath Earth was becoming aware of the Imperial fleet. If it focused its attention on them, if it tried to truly communicate with minds that weren't prepared, all ships emergency retreat, he commanded. Maximum speed, random vectors. Get us away from Earth! But as the fleet tried to disengage, space itself seemed to resist their movement. The massive consciousness beneath Earth was reaching out, curious about these small minds that had touched its dreams. Admiral, Colin's voice was desperate now. It's trying to make contact with your crew. Don't let it. Human minds are adapted to resist its influence. Yours aren't. More ships throughout the fleet were reporting crew casualties. Not deaths, but something worse. Crew members whose minds had been touched by the dreaming deep were no longer entirely themselves. They spoke of visions beyond the edge of reality, of spaces between spaces where unimaginable things waited. Sir, Yelsak said, blood running from his eyes. It's beautiful. It's showing me the universe as it really is. The part we can't see. The part that dreams everything into existence. Zextoth grabbed his aide by the shoulders. Commander, stay with me. Don't let it take your mind. Through sheer force of will and the sacrifice of half his crew, Zextoth managed to get the fleet moving away from Earth. But as they retreated, they could see the impossible truth with their own eyes. Cracks were appearing in Earth's surface, but instead of magma, light poured out. The light of a consciousness so vast that it used planets as neurons. The oceans began to glow as something stirred beneath them, and from the depths came a presence that made every sapient mind in the fleet understand wordlessly what they were truly seeing. They were looking at a god, a sleeping god that humanity had spent 10,000 years keeping asleep. As the Imperial fleet limped away from Sol at maximum speed, thousands of human ships were arriving to reinforce the containment. They moved with practiced efficiency, taking positions around Earth that had been planned for centuries. Admiral Martinez's final transmission reached them as they prepared to jump to hyperspace. Admiral Zextoth, what you've seen today must never be shared with the galaxy. The other species aren't ready to know that something like the dreaming deep exists. Humanity will continue to stand guard. We'll keep the Guardian asleep. But the rest of the galaxy must stay away from Earth. The last thing Zextoth saw before the jump to hyperspace was Earth itself, glowing softly as the dreaming deep settled back into slumber, surrounded by thousands of human ships maintaining their eternal vigil. 3 months later, the Galactic Empire issued an official decree. Sol system was classified as a quarantine zone. No Imperial ships would approach within 50 light-years without unanimous council approval. Humanity was invited to join the Galactic Council not as subjects, but as equals. Not for their technology or their military might, but for their willingness to sacrifice everything to protect the galaxy from horrors beyond imagination. Official records simply stated that Sol contained dangerous spatial anomalies. The truth was classified at levels so high that most of the Empire's leaders didn't know it existed. Admiral Zextoth never spoke publicly about what he had seen near Earth, but late at night in his private quarters, he sometimes looked up at the stars and whispered a prayer of gratitude to the humans who stood guard over humanity's darkest secret. Somewhere in the depths of space, on a blue world that looked so peaceful, the dreaming deep continued its ancient slumber. And around it, generation after generation of humans maintained their watch, knowing that the price of failure was not just their extinction, but the unmaking of reality itself. The galaxy slept safely, never knowing how close it had come to waking up in a universe where nightmares were real. And in the depths of Sol system, humanity continued its eternal duty as guardians of the dark.